My dear brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus, I'm sure you all know about the 7 wonders of the world. But do you know about the 7 blunders of the world? Yes, you heard me right. 7 blunders. Well, that is what we're going to talk about today. And this phrase was first used by Gandhi, the great freedom fighter from India. He was the one who came out with these 7 statements, and according to him, these 7 things brought about all violence in the world. And this, in other terms, is also called as the 7 social sins of men. So, the 7 social sins, what it is, the 7 blunders of men, or the 7 blunders of this world, today we will see from the standpoint of the Bible. We will see if all these things are in the Bible and what the Bible says. Actually, we will see that all these things were already there in the Bible long before Gandhi used it. The principles which are in these 7 words have long been recorded in the Holy Bible. And we all know that Gandhi read the Bible. He was an educated man, and we know that he read the Bible. He liked the teachings of Jesus Christ, and in fact, he used the same philosophy of Jesus, of non-violence, and he used it so powerfully to get the British out of India. Without having fired a single bullet, without having raised an army, he was able to make the mighty British kingdom to leave India. And now that was really something. The same principles have been used all over the world. But it was Gandhi who put it in the right order, and he used these particularly beautiful statements, and it is very nice to look into it. So, brothers and sisters, we will see one by one what these 7 blunders of men are, and we will see how the Bible supports these statements and what we can learn from these things. The first statement is wealth without work. So these are all single line statements, but it has got so much thought in it. Seeking to have wealth without working for it. It is one of the first social sins of the 7 sins. So, brothers and sisters, this is the root cause of so many violence and fightings in the world as we know it. Because people want wealth, but they don't want to work. This started ever since the fall of the first parents. When they sinned against God, they were cursed to earn bread by the sweat of their brow. So for everything they wanted, they had to work for it. But as people are selfish, they don't want to work for what they want, and they try to have someone do the work for them. And that's how they started wars and conquered other people and made them slaves and do all the work for them. This has been the story ever since. People like to have wealth, but they don't want to work for it. Now, wealth can be anything. It can be money, it can be properties, it can be wealth of knowledge, it could be anything. It is actually someone else's labor. And if we want that wealth, we need to work for it. That is the proper way. That is justice. Because money means it represents the labor of somebody. Somebody has toiled for it. Now his toil, his hardship is in the form of this currency in our hands. So if anybody wants that, he has to work for that. That is the proper way. So without working, if he wants to take hold of that, then that is not at all correct. And that is what many want to do. They want money, but they don't want to work for it. And therefore, they go stealing. Someone else has worked and earned that money, and these people, they will just steal from them. It's so tragic. It happens all the time. I've heard of one brother who worked for 1 month, hard work, every day go to work and come back in public bus. And he had this salary in his pocket. And yes, he was coming back at the end of the month. But someone flicked it. Someone picked his pocket, and just imagine how wrong this is. This person has worked for 1 whole month, how many hours he has put in, how much trouble he has taken, but somebody just took it from him without doing any work. So how great an evil this is. So that is also what we read in the scriptures. The scriptures very strongly teach that Christians, they should never do such things. We see this in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 28.
He who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with his own hands, that he may have something to share with those in need.
There you see. He was told, let him steal no more. That is what the Bible says. But let him work with his hands, so that he may have enough for himself and to spare for those who are in need. That is what very clearly Bible said 2000 years before Gandhi used these words. So it is very, very improper to desire wealth without working. And there are so many who do these kinds of robbery. We see so many videos in which people enter into the supermarkets and they steal so many things from the shop. And then we know people steal at gunpoint, using arms to rob people. And we also know about people who loot the entire bank. But all this is evil, and God is against this. And good people and Christians, real Christians, should never do all these things. And there are others who may not steal from anybody, but still they desire easy money, money without working for it. And they get into gambling. Using little money, they gamble in order to get so much money. See, again, that is the same concept. The same thing is used in betting. We have the sports betting, and we have this horse race bettings, and we have so many other ways in which people invest little and want to take more without working for it. And of course, this lottery is also very, very popular business in the world. So many people, they just want to buy one ticket and win millions of dollars without working for it. All this is the same evil desire, this evil of desiring wealth without working. Brothers and sisters, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10 and 11, we clearly see how evil this is.
For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule: if a man will not work, he shall not eat. We hear that some among you are idle. They are not busy, they are busybodies.
See? Very clearly, Paul is saying the same thing. And very clearly says these words. We'll read that 10 again, please.
If a man will not work, he shall not eat.
See? If a man will not work, he shall not eat, the apostle said. Not that if a man cannot work. Now, if somebody is injured or sick or is old and may not be able to work. But if somebody is able to work but is not willing to work, and there are some temporary situations in which people don't get work. They want to work but they don't have a job and they are waiting. So that can be a temporary short time of waiting. Now, those are not the people whom Paul has in mind. But people who don't have a mind to work at all, who want to be lazy, want to live on someone else's hard work. There were quite a few like that in the early church, he says. That's what verse 11 we read.
We hear that some among you are idle. They are not busy, they are busy bodies.
See, they are idle. Some among you are idle. Because in the early church, they had all things in common, and many people were donating to the church, and always there was food for those who are hungry, and everything was shared. Some decided to make full use of this. They took advantage of that love and labor of others, and they started being idle. Without doing any work at all, they started feeding on themselves in the church resources, and in the free time they were busybodies, interfering in other people's work, and so on. And Paul says such people should not be there in the church. Everybody should work with their hands. They should not steal. They should not be idle, but they should work and earn their own bread, Paul says. Today many people also are like that. They become Christians and they are happy to be saved, and some even become preachers, and they say they are full-time servants, but they don't serve the Lord full-time, but rather they are idle. They go from house to house to collect offering and to take money so that they may have an easy life. Now, all this is wrong, and the Bible very clearly says that everyone should work. Maybe there are those who are still studying. They are still young and they cannot work because they are studying, and the parents will do all to support them, and that is different. And their work is studying, so they should study well. But there are some who do not even study and who do not even work, but keep on living a lazy life and want money without having to work for it. Now the same thing goes with those who desire others' wealth, properties. Maybe from their parents they want to take it forcibly, or they want to take someone else's property without having to work for it. Now all this is wrong. Or stealing someone else's hard work, like someone has brought about a wealth of information. Now it's easy to just steal that and then use it in their own name. There are people who do that also. So even that is wrong. So brothers and sisters, all this we should not do. There is so much fraud happening, online scams going on, all because there are many people who want wealth without working. And the second statement in the 7 blunders of the world is pleasure without conscience. People wanting to have pleasure without conscience. They don't think whether it is good or bad, whether it is sinful, and they don't even care how this will affect others. All they want is satisfy their desires, and they go do it. And how evil this is. Because of these desires only, unrestrained passion, people going after their lusts without thinking about what their conscience is the root of all evil. This the Bible has said long back. We see this in James chapter 4 verse 1.
What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you?
See? So how wars and battles come among you? Don't they come from the lust or desire that is within you? That desire, that lust for pleasure is what causes all disputes. Because God has given this body to enjoy, this world He has created for our pleasure. But everything should be in its proper way. So God has put norms and rules so that we do not harm anybody in the process of making ourselves happy. That is what God said is sin. You can enjoy all the fruits of the Garden of Eden, God said to Adam and Eve. But there is something which is forbidden, and you should not go after it. But they went after it. Because of their greediness, they took that fruit and ate it, and as a result of which, they were sent out of the garden, and all curse came upon mankind. They had conscience. Even today, everybody has got conscience. We know what is good, what is bad. Without having read any Bible or listening to any teachings, everybody knows what is good, what is bad. Because all people are created in the image of God. Originally, man was created in the image of God. And since God is justice, since God is holy, since God is love, we all have that in us. But yet, people ignore their conscience and go after what they lust after. And because of this, there is so much evil and suffering in this world. Brothers and sisters, people who are like this don't fear God. They don't care for other people's happiness. And this is such a big evil we see. Oftentimes we come across news which shock us, wherein people have entered into houses and rape defenseless women and kill them and murder them. And in that, as we see how much that person suffers before she is killed, and what agony this brings upon so many people, the family members, the parents, maybe the spouse, their friends. So much agony they have to suffer because of this evil act of one person. And so, brothers and sisters, this seeking pleasure without conscience is so evil. And the Bible always says a Christian must kill these desires. He must not give in to all these desires or lusts of his flesh. And he must seek pleasure only within the boundaries which God has permitted. And that we see in Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 onwards.
Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry.
See, all these things, he says, put to death. Because these pleasures is what is going to destroy you. These sinful pleasures, pleasures without conscience towards God, without conscience towards people. That is what will bring the wrath of God also upon us, and will bring so much suffering in this world. And that's what we read in the subsequent verses.
Because of these, the wrath of God is coming.
You see, because of such acts only, people wanting pleasure without having conscience, the wrath of God is coming. And that's why God destroyed the first world, because of such things. Immorality, adultery, and evil desires, all these things made the people so unworthy and so sinful that God had to destroy the whole world. The same thing he did to the people in Sodom and Gomorrah also. They went after pleasure without thinking whether it is right or wrong. And therefore, the evil was so great that God had to rain fire and destroy those cities. Fire comes and destroys. And today also, the anger of God is upon this world because of this one sin, seeking pleasure without conscience. And we come to the third statement, that is knowledge without character. Now, knowledge is very important. We all want knowledge and wisdom. But if we don't have character, what an evil it is. So, brothers and sisters, knowledge brings more responsibility. Once we get more knowledge, now we are expected to do the right thing. But knowing what is right and not doing it makes us even more guilty. That's what we see in one parable. Jesus says, the servant who knew not the master's will and did not prepare will be given few lashes. But the servant who knew the Lord's will and yet he did not prepare will be given more lashes. So the punishment increases with the increase of knowledge. But what if knowledge is there, but there is no character? This is a very bad condition. Brothers and sisters, that is what the scriptures very clearly teach us. When Paul was talking to the people in Corinthians, and many were coming out of idolatry and worshipping the true God, but some were still weak. They were just been into the truth and they were still struggling with their past life of idolatry and all that. In that setting, Paul speaks to some who were strong in knowledge. They knew that an idol is nothing and things that are offered to an idol is nothing. Because that is also true. Because idol is nothing and what is offered to idol is nothing. Because God is the one who created all things for us to enjoy. And so if you are clearly knowledgeable on this, you are not doing anything wrong. So even if you eat, it's not a sin. Because you know that an idol is nothing. You know that which is offered to an idol is nothing. But this knowledge of some was destroying others who were new to the faith and who were still weak in faith. That's what we see Paul saying in 1 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 1.
Now about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up.
You see, how clearly is this? He says knowledge puffs up. So it makes us boast. It makes us think that we are in a higher level and gives us a great feeling about it. That's all. But it does not help others. It does not build others. It will, in fact, it will put down others. It will cause others to stumble also. If we have knowledge but do not have character. And he goes on to explain down in verse 10 and 11.
For if anyone with a weak conscience sees you who have knowledge eating an idol's temple, won't he be emboldened to eat what he has sacrificed to idols? So this weak brother, for whom Christ died, is destroyed by your knowledge.
You see. So one person has got knowledge, he thinks idol is nothing, it's only man-made thing. For me, the true God is in heaven, so it doesn't really affect my faith if I go and eat in a Gentile temple. But seeing you eating there, someone who is weak or new to faith, he will also come and eat, but since his faith is weak, he may stumble. He may think something is there in the idol and have some faith in it, and he will sin against God because of your knowledge. See how clearly Paul says that having knowledge is not just enough. We should have the character. We should care about others. That is how clearly here written, and we all know about the great chapter of love in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and we know what second verse says. 13 to 1 Corinthians.
If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing.
See? What it says? If I have all knowledge, if I can understand all mysteries and prophecies, yet if I don't have love, I am nothing, he says. Though knowledge is very important, because of having knowledge we know what is right and what is wrong. Yet if we do not do that which is right, we do not have this character, then my knowledge is totally useless, he says. So having this knowledge, we should also grow up in love and have character. Otherwise, just having knowledge is not only useless, it is in fact dangerous. It makes us more sinful. It brings more punishment also upon ourselves. So the third statement of Gandhi is also very clearly given to us in the scriptures. First of all, it is wealth without work. Secondly, pleasure without conscience. Thirdly, knowledge without character. And the fourth blunder of men is commerce without morality. Now, commerce means business. Now, doing business is good, but if there is no morality in all that we do, then that is also a very big evil. Brothers and sisters, we know there's so much business that is done in this world. People make so much profit, but there is this lack of morality. There is no ethics in business. Because business is a means of earning money, but there are some ethics to be followed. If somebody wants to sell something, he will get it from where they give it in a lower price, and he will sell it with a higher price. But that price increase should be very much in proportion to what that thing is worth. So if it is $100, maybe a few dollars more for his effort of going and getting it and making it available to the customer, that should be in that reasonable limit. But what if it is double the cost of that goods? What if it is 3 times? I have seen, brothers and sisters, some things are sold at 10 times the actual cost. There is no limit only. People are so greedy and they're making money. If that product is worth only $10, people are selling it 10 times that amount. And in this, the buyer is fooled, is cheated. So he's paying more than what is expected of him. And that is nothing but thievery. So, brothers and sisters, we see this all the time and we feel so bad about it. And this is very, very big evil. And there is evil in almost all types of business. But God is against this. God wants just dealing. There should be justice in everything we do. And that's what we see very clearly in the Bible. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 1 very clearly says that God hates this evil way of doing business.
The Lord abhors dishonest scales, but accurate weights are his delight.
You see, God abhors dishonest scales. The Lord abhors dishonesty in any business. Things should be very honest. That is what God says. But today, the business, there is no honesty. There is so much of deception and lies. And so many times we suffer because of this evil. How many times we buy things and we find out that it is fake. Once I bought a box full of batteries. Batteries we use for mic and in the church we need often. And so I bought a full box. I saw the company I needed. Everything was correct. But after I brought it home, I found out that not a single battery was working. It was completely fake. Now imagine how I felt about that seller. I gave the right amount of money, but all that was for nothing. So this will be the cause for so much suffering and so much fighting and so much loss of peace. And therefore, brothers and sisters, God hates this. Long before the times of Amos the prophet, God said, the people of Israel had become so dishonest. They thought making money is everything. For them, profit is everything. So don't care about ethics, don't care about morals, don't care about justice. How much God hated all this, we read in Amos chapter 8, verse 5.
When will the new moon be over, that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath be ended, that we may market wheat?
See, they're waiting for the Sabbath to end, for the full moon, for the festival to end, so that they may start their business, to rise early and to start their business. But they were doing all this in dishonesty. What do we read next?
Skimping the measure.
See, skimping the measure.
Boosting the price.
Boosting the price. The making the measure smaller. Somehow they made it smaller so that the buyer will get less, but they increase the price. This is what we see all the time. They increase the price, but the quantity is reduced. Quality is reduced. That is what the people of Israel were doing, and what God says. We can read subsequent verses.
Buying the poor with silver and the needy for a pair of sandals.
See, buying the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes. They want this money so that they can buy people off for nothing. You see? For a pair of shoes, poor people are brought. So, brothers and sisters, all these dealings are so unfair. And God says in verse 7,
The Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, I will never forget anything they have done.
You see, God says, I will not forget what you are doing. I know what all the dishonest ways you are doing things. And therefore, God will bring them to judgment. So, brothers and sisters, very clearly, God is against commerce without morality, as we can see very clearly. And the fifth one on the list is science without humanity. Now, science is such a blessing. We need science for everything. We use science now to make this video. This camera was made using science. This mic we got as a result of science, this light and this phone and everything. But what if in our desire to increase our knowledge in science, we forget our humanity? Brothers and sisters, science is used for wrong purposes. Today, all these technologies we have, all these inventions, but all these things are used for the wrong ways and the wrong motives. Not only that, people are using science to bring destruction upon each other. So much destruction. There are so many bombs piled up between these countries that the world can be destroyed several times over and over again. So much destruction using science. And talking about these bombs and all that, we all know about the Nobel Prize, Nobel Peace Prize. That is one of the highest kind of awards that is given for peaceful achievements. But we all know about Alfred Nobel, who started giving out these awards. You know what he invented? The man who created the Nobel Peace Prize, do you know what he invented? He invented dynamite. And they started using this so much in war, and people were getting so much in those days. And because of this, he later on realized what an evil thing it had become. And he gave all his money to give award for those who do peace. So, brothers and sisters, dynamite and nuclear bombs and more that destroy one another in millions. Now imagine talking about the last great war, the Second World War. More lives were lost in the Second World War because of these bombs than in the previous wars. Why? Because science started using this for destruction. They started using science. And they kept on discovering new ways and increasing their knowledge of making destructive bombs and missiles and various other things. And today, now we are all set to destroy this whole world. Brothers and sisters, we know there are also other bombs like the chemical bombs and also these biological bombs. And imagine in case there is a war, all these things will be used upon one another, and how much destruction and evil this will bring upon the people. And talking about biological war, there is a strong feeling in so many intellectual circles that this coronavirus also was created or invented in the laboratory in China. We do not know how true it is, but maybe that might be true also. Because there are so many countries like Russia and China who have used this concept of biological bombs to destroy one another. Because this can do more destruction than outright nuclear bombs. If you want to destroy your enemy without them knowing about it, without anybody knowing about it, all these ways are used. So we do not know, brothers and sisters, what all it will take us to. And also we have heard about so many experiments that are made on human beings, and that has been so horrible even to think about. We know about the experiments that Hitler did during the Second World War on Jews. They were injected with so many things, and they were operated upon, and so many experiments were conducted upon them. All this is so evil. And also now there is this new concept of developing organs, human beings with just organs for future use. And already we know that there is so much of misuse happening. Kidneys are stolen in India and in some of the poorer countries without the consent and knowledge of the patient. Kidneys are stolen and sold. And so many things are happening, brothers and sisters, all because there is science without humanity. And how evil that is. And the scriptures very clearly says we should not forget humanity in our pursuit of scientific knowledge. And that we see in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 to 21.
Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God.
You see, he's telling people to put your hope in God. Don't forget your humanity, that's what he says. Just because you have power, just because you have wealth, don't forget humanity. Then,
who richly provides us with everything for us for our enjoyment.
You see, it is God. Don't forget, God is the one who richly provides all things for our enjoyment. Don't forget, there is this God. And then,
command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share.
You see, that's the humanity. We should be generous and willing to share, to do good. That is humanity. Don't forget humanity. That is what the Bible very clearly teaches.
In this way, they will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundations for the coming age.
You see, he says, by doing good to others, by lending to others, by being generous, you're putting a foundation for your future everlasting life. So all the good deeds you're doing, it's like sowing for the future. So he says, don't forget God, who is the one who gives you everything. And then don't forget to be good to others. That is what very clearly he says. But science has forgotten God, and as a result, forgotten humanity only. Now I say this because in the late 19th century, Charles Darwin came up with this theory. He started making some studies about species in his tours, and he came up with this theory of evolution. And he said everything is being evolved of itself. This planet itself came to become like this by accident and by chance. And life on earth and everything that is on earth, the plants, the trees, the fruits, the animals, the insects, everything is come as a process of evolution. Now there was this water, now this amoeba, single-celled amoeba, and later on it started to evolve into more complex cells, and then it became fishes, and then amphibians, and then it started walking on the land and taking different forms until one led to other, and they started evolving and finally became man. So he said everything is evolving. It's only that it takes a long time that we can't observe it, but that is what happens. So in a sense what he was saying is that there is no God who created all this, because all these things came into existence by itself, by process of evolution. And he also brought in this concept of survival of the fittest. So whichever creature was stronger, it survived, and the weaker ones were destroyed. So in the process, the stronger ones became even more stronger and wiser and smarter, and finally they became man. So where is God? There is no God only. So once this theory he brought forth, the people of the world, they embraced this theory, even though there was no proofs, which he said he will be able to find out so many links between these evolution stages. Yet without proof, they accepted it as science. Now that is not science. That is false science, brothers and sisters. Now science is this invention that we use every day. That is true wisdom that comes from God. God made man wise because God is wisdom. God created everything in his wisdom, and since man was created in his image, we have this wisdom. We have this knowledge. So we can invent things and we can start using and making things. But there are some things which are not science at all. It is just a theory. But people accept it as science. And that is what we read in the 21st verse in 1 Timothy 6. Very clearly he says, this is called science that is falsely so called. Can you read it in King James? We'll read from 20. 1 Timothy 6:20.
O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called.
You see? He says, keep yourself from vain babblings and opposition of science falsely so called. It is not science, but it is falsely called as science. So called science, it means. It is not science, but it is so called science. Falsely it is called as science, but it is not science. These are the vain babblings of the evolutionists. People like Darwin. These are the vain babblings, saying that everything came of itself, that the entire universe exists because of accidents and chances. So all these are the vain babblings. And the world was ready to accept that vain babbling. And so since then, they rejected God altogether. And when they rejected God, they rejected humanity also. Now the concept is survival of the fittest. Now you do all that you can to survive. So it is your survival, it is your happiness. So you don't care about humanity, you don't care about others. Brothers and sisters, that is how the world became even more sinful and selfish and evil. So this God permitted because man had lost his desire for truth. Man did not love God, and because of this, God let them believe such evil lies that we see in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9 onwards we'll read.
The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan, displayed in all kinds of counterfeit miracles, signs and wonders.
You see, all kind of wonders. We are talking about wonders, 7 wonders and blunders. There's so many wonders and blunders happening. But all this is from Satan. The word of God very clearly says, these are to happen in the last days, and now since we are in the last days, all these evil things are happening. And verse 10.
And in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing.
You see, in every sort of evil, all types of evil and deceiving things are happening in these times.
They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved.
You see, they perish. They lose their faith and they are destroyed because they love not the truth that they might be saved. Verse 11.
For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie.
You see, God sends a powerful delusion so that they believe a lie. Today, the whole world has accepted evolution as proof that we all came into existence because of a series of accidental occurrences, and therefore there is no God. And once there is no God, now we have become like beasts. And far worse than beasts, because we have knowledge, yet we lost our humanity. And now the concept is so selfishness. Everywhere it is selfishness, it is survival of the fittest, and that is how the world has changed ever since. So, brothers and sisters, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, and the 6th is worship without sacrifice. Now Gandhi, coming from India, which is very, very religious. And they knew that if you go to worship God in a temple or in a holy place, you have to take something to God. You can't just go empty-handed and worship God. No, that's why he said, to think that we can worship God without sacrificing anything, that is another big blunder that we are making. And how true, brothers and sisters, this is even in the Bible. Do you know that in the Bible, the people of Israelites were asked to go before the Lord at least 3 times in a year. Wherever they are, in whichever part of the nation, they have to come to the designated place, the temple, in designated time. And when they come, they should not come empty-handed. This God made it very clear to them. We see that in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 16.
3 times a year, all your men must appear before the Lord your God, at the place he will choose. At the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of weeks, and the feast of tabernacles, no man should appear before the Lord empty-handed.
See, no man should appear before the Lord empty-handed. When you come to God, you bring him an offering. So without sacrifice, how you can worship God? That is what he says. Why? Because God has done so much for us. God has given us all things to enjoy, as we just read. He is the one who has given us life. And when we go to worship him, we need to express our thanks by taking something which costs us something, to give up something for him. That is what God expects. Right from the first family, we see Abel brought the first fruits of his flock and gave it to God as a sacrifice. And God was pleased with Abel. There you see. You see, not because God needs that lamb or God needs our offering, but we need to give that offering. We need to give to express our love, to please God. So we should take this offering to God. Very clearly, this was mentioned on and on again in the scriptures. We read in Psalms 96, verse 8.
Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts.
So bring an offering and come into his courts. Even if you are so poor and destitute, God said, go to the forest and catch some pigeons and bring it to God at least. And that's what so many people do. They are so poor, they at least take some flowers from the trees or some fruits and give it to God. Because they don't want to come empty-handed before God, who has done so much. In fact, God says that if we are willing to express our love in these offerings, if we sacrifice to God, what God will do? God will make us even more blessed. It's not that we should think that by giving to God we lose things. It's very foolish to think that by giving to God we are losing it. In fact, we are gaining a lot more, because God sees our love, our dedication in giving to him, and God will bless us in return in manifold ways. And that is what we see in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 9 to 10.
Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops.
You see, honor the Lord with all your wealth. With all your wealth, whatever wealth it might be. It might be money, it might be property, or whatever, it may be bonus that you got, it may be some income you got. Whatever you get, honor the Lord with it, and
then your barns will be filled to overflowing.
You see, then your barns will be filled to overflowing.
And your vats will brim over with new wine.
You see, your vats will overflow. He says, your blessings will overflow when you give to the God. Nobody can give to God and become a loser. God will bless even more when we give to God lovingly and sacrificially. So, brothers and sisters, this is also very strongly given to us in the scriptures so many times again and again. But many Christians also do this mistake. They think just worshipping God is enough, just praising God. Of course, giving God the calves of our lips is good, praising God is good. But our hand should not be empty. We should honor Him with our wealth also, with the first fruits of all our profit. That is what we are called to do. But many Christians, they come to God empty-handed. They come, they enjoy the free gift of forgiveness, they receive the gift of peace and hope of resurrection, eternal life, everything, they got it freely. And they don't want to give anything to God in return. How much God has given to us, but what if we are not willing to give to Him anything? We just come empty-handed. God has given us so much blessing, so much income. God has given us a body to work and knowledge to use everything. But in return, we don't want to give to God anything. Just come freely, sit, hear the sermon, enjoy the service, and just walk off. Just put something minimum, whatever comes into your hand when the collection is taken, just give like that. That's random giving. Not giving out of heart, not determined to give in proportion to what God has given us. Our giving should always be as God has blessed us. And God made it a pattern in the church that on the first day of every week, that each man should set apart some amount in keeping with his income. You see, it should always be in keeping with the income, in proportion to the income. So he said every first day of the week, that is when they came to worship God, the first day of the week, to assemble and to have fellowship and to listen to God's word. Then he said, you set apart some amount on the first day of the week. So, brothers and sisters, what Gandhi said is long before very clearly taught in the scriptures, that it is such a blunder to think that you can worship God without sacrifice. In fact, the Bible very clearly says that not just giving out of our substance, the increase that we get from God, but we have to give ourselves to God. How clearly we see that the true Christian spirit is following our Lord Jesus. Jesus himself gave everything to God, gave his body as a living sacrifice to God. And we are also asked to do the same. See this in Romans chapter 12, verse 1.
Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God.
You see, offer your body as a living sacrifice. This is pleasing to God. That is the sacrifice we should be giving, not just a part of ourselves, but wholly we should give. That should be the mindset of the true follower of Christ. All his time, all his talents, his life itself is dedicated to God. That's how it should be, brothers and sisters. And this is your service, he says.
This is your spiritual act of worship.
See, this is the spiritual act of worship. So absolutely there can be no worship without sacrificing. Worshipping God means sacrificing. All the prophets we see in the Bible, they set up altars and gave offering to God. Abraham gave 1/10 to Melchizedek. Jacob said, I will give 1/10. And there are those who gave a lot more than just 1/10. And Jesus Christ gave his whole life to God. And we are also asked to give ourselves to God. So, worship without humanity is such a big blunder. And finally, what he said was, being himself a great politician and leader, he said, politics without principle is the last blunder. You see, politics means to serve the people. But what if people become politicians without any principles? Now that is such an evil, he said. And that is what has happened in the world today. Not only in India where Gandhi lived, but in all the countries we see corruption. So much corruption among politicians. But in India it is even more. As we all know that India is one of the very corrupt nations. And that's why we are way behind other countries in happiness index or in so many other ways. That, brothers and sisters, is the result of people becoming politicians, coming into politics for the desire of money, for the desire of their position, for their lust for power and fame, but not to serve people. There is no principles. There is no justice in all that they do. Because gone are the days when people like Gandhi lived. And not only Gandhi, but others in those times. They became leaders to serve the people, to save the people, so that they can be happy. But today, the politicians, as we all know, they come up to power using money. Those who have a lot of money and can spend a lot of money come to power. And then when they are in power, they make even more money. And then they support all these corrupt institutions because they come up with a lot of history. So many corrupt people are in politics. Their background, their supporters, they are all gundas and very reckless people, people of violence. And they use all this, and that's how they come to power. And later on they empower these people, and that is why the country is suffering. When a righteous person prospers, everybody will be happy. But when a wicked person, when a man without principles or morals or ethics is in power, all the people will mourn. That is what we read very clearly in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2.
When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan.
You see, the people groan when the wicked rule. See, when the righteous thrive, people rejoice. So that's how it is. So people without any principle, without proper education also, without experience, they come to power. Just because they are famous, just because people know them, they blindly elect them. And God Almighty has permitted all this. God has permitted all this evil to happen. You know why? So that all the world may know the difference between God's kingdom and the kingdoms of this world. We ourselves willingly elect our leaders, but those leaders are not able to save us. They are not able to do justice to us. They are not able to do us good. That is what we find out in our day-to-day life, and in the recent pandemic also. The government was not able to save so many millions of people in India. People who got sick could not get an ambulance to get to an hospital. They could not get a bed in hospital. They could not get oxygen. They could not get medicine also. And many died in their homes, in their streets. And when the people died like that, there was no proper place to bury them also. Such was the situation. And nobody was able to save so many people. And then the vaccination was found out, and the whole world were getting vaccinated. But here in India, there was no stock of these vaccines. So many people, they could not get vaccinated. And therefore the death toll, the second wave, took its full toll upon India. Even when there was vaccine available in the world, yet the government was not able to get it in time to the people, and many lost their lives. So this is just one example of what will happen when there is politics without principles. Brothers and sisters, God has permitted this because this is all for only a while. This is only for some time that God has permitted these evils to dominate the world. But the time will come very soon when God will send Jesus again into this world. Not as a human being, but as the glorious King of Kings. And Jesus, as we very clearly read in the Bible, he will destroy this evil world and set up a new kingdom, new world, and then resurrect all that are dead. And upon them he will rule for 1,000 years. And when he does that, he is going to appoint the leaders whom he has chosen, whom he has tested and proved to be like himself. To those who have principles, those who have love, those who have righteousness, such people only, whom he has already selected in this present time, he will exalt them to power, and they will rule with him for 1,000 years. And imagine how that will be, how the kingdom will be, how the people will rejoice when such a thing happens. And that is what we read in the book of Revelation chapter 20, verse 6.
Blessed and holy are those who have part in the first resurrection.
You see, blessed and holy, who have part in the first resurrection. There will be resurrection of every man and woman and boy and girl who have ever lived and died. But there will be the first resurrection, those who are resurrected first, and they will be holy. They are the holy people. And then?
The second death has no power over them, but they will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with them for 1,000 years.
See, they will be like priests and kings with Jesus Christ and rule for 1,000 years. So the future is very secure. God has planned it such a way that when He establishes His kingdom, not one man without purity or holiness or principles will be in power. So all this God has permitted so that we may know the difference between God's kingdom and worldly kingdoms. So, in the meanwhile, how much ever suffering there is, however hard it is to live in the people of this world who commit these blunders, yet let us not give up our own principles. And if we are true and faithful in serving the Lord and following Lord Jesus, we will one day rule with Him. That's what lastly we read in 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 12.
If we endure, we will also reign with Him.
If we endure or if we suffer with Him, we will also rule with Him. So, brothers and sisters, Gandhi said these famous words, but long before he said this, all these things is what the Bible actually teaches. So if a philosopher from the world should observe so many things, how much more we as Christians who have the Word of God in our hands appreciate all these truths and then to follow it. So the 7 blunders of the world are seeking wealth without work, seeking pleasure without conscience, having knowledge without character, doing commerce without morality, having science but losing humanity, and worshipping God without sacrifice, and finally politics without principles. These are the 7 blunders of the world, or 7 sins of men. And God willing, in our next class we will see what are the 7 blunders of Christians, 7 blunders that Christians commit. That is for our next message. Until then, God be with you and bless you.